This is I Have No Title and I Must Podcast, the show where we discuss any and all aspects of pop culture. We are your hosts, Tyler.
And Chris.
And today's episode is going to be a little bit different. So far, we've talked about franchises that we love or is relevant. But today, we're going to talk about, what do you want to call it? A critique of critiques or the toxic review culture introspective?
Yes, that is almost verbatim. I think what I've been saying in my head since you suggested this topic. I think it's very relevant.
This is something that's been on my mind for quite a while now, but with the last couple movies like Indiana Jones and The Flash have just really pushed this to the forefront of my mind. But with movie reviews today, it either seems like a movie has to be absolutely perfect or its name just gets dragged through the mud. And in my mind, that's not a review. That's not a critique. You can not like a movie and still give a good critique. But what people do today, that's just a snuff piece of these movies.
Yeah, and you can also just do a breakdown, which would have zero personal feelings about it and just like go over Easter eggs or how special effects work or what have you, or there's a lot of ways to go about this. Off the top, I just want to say I think this is something that is borderline exclusive to movie and TV reviews and maybe a bit of comics. Music doesn't necessarily have this unless it's about the actual musicians.
Yes.
And which that's a different thing because we're not talking about, I mean, sometimes we are talking about how it rolls in, but nowadays, if you're into serious music, you kind of discount pop or bubblegum, and that would be that. It just kind of gets made fun of, and it makes more money than the rest of good music. That's just an accepted fact. If you're into the Rolling Stones, you don't like the Monkees. The Monkees might have, at the time, they're not now, they're not, they fizzle away, but they had a few good songs. Right now, we've got people like Rick Beato breaking down music on YouTube, the Professor of Rock. It's just a fun time that talks about classic music. They break down trivia about it and or music theory. And there are some channels that do this with movies. I brought up Screen Crush several times, I think, and I have seen people in his comments talking about Indiana Jones, not even talking about the movie, just thanking him for doing an unbiased breakdown review of the film, doing something middling to positive about it, because there is this culture of toxicity that exists around reviewing films. They've turned it, for the most part, it's politically motivated most of the time.
I don't know, but there's just so many movies that I missed out on until later because so many bad reviews were coming out that I just quit listening to reviews in general. Honestly, the only reviews that I take serious and the only person that I listen to as far as reviews go is Darren Van Zant on Flick Connection. And even that, his show isn't about reviewing movies. It's more about recommending movies and which streaming platforms to find them. But he usually gives you like a small little breakdown of why he's recommending those movies. And even with that, if the movie isn't perfect, he'll tell you like, hey, I didn't like this about it. You might not like this, but go see it if you like this. And I think that's the way it should be. Not every movie's perfect, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily terrible. We got to understand the difference between objective and subjective.
That nuance has been lost since the year 2003, I think.
Very much. Because, there's movies that are objectively bad that I like.
Oh, yeah.
And there's movies that I can objectively say that, yes, these are very well-crafted movies. These are great, but they're not for me. But it seems like if you're going to review something, you can't say, it's not for me. It might be for you. It's like you either have to absolutely love it or just trash it.
I took a few screen grabs. Here's some tube headlines. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is the worst movie of the year. Indiana Jones and the Goddaughter from Hell movie review. Let's see, Insufferable, just with a little arrow pointing to his goddaughter.
I seen one that just flat out said Indiana Boner.
Okay. I think he might need some pills for that. But there's one that just says Dookie. And in the title of the video, this isn't from the guy, but the title of the video is a crime against cinema. Crime against cinema. One with giving his goddaughter the, Phoebe?
Phoebe's her real name.
Yeah. With a word bubble that says, it's my movie. One of the most insufferable characters ever. I don't know.
She's fine. The parts you don't like about her, you're supposed to not like her.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I'm not saying don't go see the movie because that character, like I said in our movie review, I feel like she was borderline a secondary antagonist to Mads Mikkelsen's Nazi character.
Yeah.
So
She's like the anti-Jones.
yes, and another one is a disgrace of a film. I don't. And then How the Empire Strikes Back ruined all movies ever forever. I guess when you make something so good that it makes grown men weep when they go back to the cinema and see it, you can't do better than that. So everything is bad by comparison. A lot of people's issues with a lot of these films, they feel like there's a political agenda that they don't agree with that's being shoved their way. Like this, Indiana Jones, an old grizzled man, is going to be replaced by a younger-ish woman. I don't think that was the story of the film.
No.
In fact, both of these, I'm going to spoil just the tiniest little thing, and it's no real plot point or anything. I'm just saying, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny both have moments where the hat, as if it is some sort of magic crown that gives you ice powers or the ability to detect secret.
It's the hat that brings Frosty to life.
Yeah. Both of these become up for grabs at a certain point, and Indiana Jones ends up with it. So he's not being replaced. I don't know what you think feminism is trying to tell you. And that's not the movie they made. I don't know. Are we watching two different films? Is there another version of this out there like Spider-Verse?
That's another thing that I wonder most of the time anyway, is are you actually watching a movie when you go watch a movie? Because, again, we'll throw in Tenet on this one. I agree. This movie can be a little bit of a rough watch. It is one of those movies you have to pay attention to. You cannot turn your brain off on.
Are you still talking about Tenet?
Yeah.
Okay, Tenet. Okay.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan's Tenet.
Yes. You have to watch that movie, pay attention to it. Everyone says, oh, this movie doesn't explain itself. Like it's dumb because of that. It does. But it does not hold your hand. And it is one of those movies you cannot watch once and get it. And I understand that type of movie is not for everyone. And if you don't like it for that reason, that is fine. But people will be like, oh, it's stupid. It's dumb. It's this, it's that. Those are not reviews. That is just a movie that isn't for you, needlessly trashing. So in review culture in general, it makes me think of the Flight of the Conchords when they got the hip hoppopotamus. At some point, they say that people say that their rhymes are bad. And they're like, why? Be more constructive with your criticism. I feel this way in your movie reviews. It's not a review. You're not being constructive even on things that you dislike. You're just saying things are dumb or they're stupid or they're this or that without any real evidence or backing behind it, other than your own bias.
There's a lot of these reviews out there that have been out for a while, or just people, not even reviews technically, because they haven't seen the movie and they'll refuse to.
Yes, they'll review the entire movie based on the trailer.
Or a rumor. Because like we've said previously, there's been rumors that are erroneously being spread out there, and they're not true at all. One of which was that I heard on the Weekly Planet, James mentioned that they reshot the end of the film because they were supposed to have had Phoebe Waller-Bridge replace Indy, and that they were getting negative feedback off of that, so they reshot it. He said it's actually I don't know. I don't know anything about this. I'm just restating what they said on the Weekly Planet. He said it was impossible because there was like 2 years ago when they were filming this, there was filming from the location or photography or something that came out from then, and that there are reshoots. There are reshoots on every single film you've ever seen. They always do reshoots. Sometimes it's pickup shots. Sometimes they just decide to get a different take on something. Look at the trailer for, I think it was either the first Avengers or the second Avengers with Tony Stark, when Captain America asks Tony Stark, "What kind of man are you?" or "What? Take off the suit and what are you?" And he's like, "Billionaire, playboy, philanthropist." If you watch that from the movie, and there's probably a video on YouTube that breaks this down, or even like a lot of things where the trailer has a different take than in the movie. Now, I'm not talking about where they recut it and add characters in or redo CGI to take a character out or something like that. I'm talking about a literal, just bare bones actor speaking a line and they use just a different take. In Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, when Doctor Strange comes back and Wong is hanging from a cliff. This is in the trailer. In the trailer, Wong is like, Strange! And it's like, it's real intense and dramatic. And you think like, oh my God, is he getting killed or has he done something horrific? In the movie, it's more triumphant. He's like, Strange! It wasn't like that. But it is more triumphant. And I was like, that's interesting that they were doing, and either could work. If you've seen the film, you know how Strange comes back, and either it depends on tone. These were obviously either they got different takes on the day and released it with the trailer, or they went back and got a reshoot because they decided to go with a different tone. One way or another, this happens for every film.
Yeah, I think that's something that people need to understand if you're basing your judgments and reviews off a trailer. The people that make these trailers and the people that make the movie are not the same people, and they will just use whatever to sell whatever, and it could be untrue to the movie itself. So I don't think you should base your reviews on those either. I know for like the Babadook, it was marketed as a creature feature and it's not, and so I know that's why it was getting bad reviews, because people misunderstood the trailers and then trashed it because of that instead of for what the movie was. And I see this so many times, like anytime a new Star Wars comes out, so many negative comments and reviews on a movie that's not even out yet.
Yeah. So you said earlier there's films that maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's the movie is objectively bad, but you subjectively you're emotionally connected to it. And you just like it. And you're like, this is my guilty pleasure. I'm not defending it. I like this movie. And that's just that. So years ago, when Green Lantern came out, there's only one Green Lantern movie. And it's objectively bad. But I went to go see it because I'm a Green Lantern fan from when I was a kid. And on that same day, I went to a comic book store for the first time. And it's Heroes Realm. And it is my favorite comic book store in Lexington. Comic book store / toy store in Lexington, Kentucky. Is a free shout out to them because they're just good people. And that's why I like that shop. They actually have good selection, good customer service, good people. It's a husband and wife that run it. They struggled for the first few years, but finally got a foothold, and I think they're here to stay, and I'm glad to see it. Well, I go in there, and the guy starts chatting with me. I'm a new customer, and I just mentioned like we just came out of Green Lantern, and he was so excited. He was like, he's a bit older than me, and he's a Green Lantern. He's like hardcore Green Lantern fan. That was like my favorite guy, and was like, I know it's not a good film. I just want to enjoy it for a while. And I was like, good for you, man. I'm not gonna ruin it. I'm not gonna come in and be like, this movie was shit. You. No, I was like, if you enjoy something, I'm glad to see it. If somebody doesn't like this Indiana Jones film or The Flash or that last Thor movie, okay. But some people do just want to like our day. Yeah, I work at a fucking retail arts and crafts store. It has no relation to that story I told about the artifacts and museums and stuff from earlier, or the review. I can't remember when I said that. Anyway, it's awful, okay? It's not fun. Our days are dreary and bleak. Life is bad enough. Let some of us turn off our brains, go see a movie, and if we like it, we like it, and if we don't, it's not the end of the world. I was happy that guy enjoyed himself in the movie, and he got to see some Green Lanterning action. He got to see some constructs. He got to see him make some things with it. We got to see the Green Lantern Corps, there was Kilowog on screen. Kilowog, can you believe it? We actually got that. The other little thing that I wanted to mention is Scorsese talking about these movies being like theme parks, and Mark Maron, who I'm a fan of, has mentioned, like these comic book films, you have to go across town to see the indie film that you want to see. I don't live in Lexington, Kentucky, but I had to go to Lexington, Kentucky to see the new Wes Anderson film because we're not showing it here. Is that because The Flash is in 5 theaters? It is not. I don't even think it's in 1 theater anymore. So I don't know, he says they need to be their own thing. Like, I think he was implying they need to not show comic book films in theaters. Here's my thing with that, because I thought about this it's been rolling around in my head, and just when I walked in the door here, did I come up with I knew I wanted to mention this, and I wanted to tell this story. Me and a friend of mine went to go see The Men Who Stare at Goats. This is a long time ago. It's got Ewan McGregor, George Clooney, and Jeff Bridges. It's a nice little indie film. It's based on a true story, military experiments about psychic soldiers. I'm not sure how much of it is actually based on truth, but it is. Some of it has been declassified. They really did do this on a basic level. I enjoy the film. This story isn't about that particular film. It's that we looked in the newspaper and saw when the movie was going to be playing later that evening. It was back in those days. So we didn't think about it. We knew the movie's going to be playing at 6:30, and so we went. And that was also back when you could probably buy movie tickets in advance, but you didn't get online and get an app and get your tickets and scan a thing. So we show up and go inside, go to get the tickets. There are 0 showings for that film. Couldn't go see the movie that night. And it was too late to go. I mean, I wasn't going to go to another city at that point and figure out another, So they ended the showing of that because no one had bought tickets by a certain time, and they put another movie in there. It was a Twilight film. I don't remember which one. You could look up and see which one was playing at the same time. The Men Who Stare at Goats was out in theaters, but it was a Twilight film, and I was furious because we had the proof right there. The person at the desk acted like, I just work here, man. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, fine. And it's not like I brought the newspaper with me and came in there and was like, listen, man, it's right here. So maybe just sell me the tickets. I'll show myself to the seat and I'll watch the movie and everything will be okay. I didn't want to be that guy. I wasn't mean about it or anything, but I was pretty pissed. We leave and I was like, well, what do you want to do now? So theaters like money, and they're going to show what's going to make money. If they put 5 theaters or block out, we used to have like actual midnight showings, and they still do go pretty late. Those Thursday nights, they would block out every theater or like half the theaters for episode 2, episode 3, Star Wars, whatever. When Endgame, the Avengers film, first came out, it's like there's a bunch of theaters that are showing this really long film. And if Twilight made that kind of money still today, I don't know if it would or wouldn't, but if it did, the theaters are going to show what makes money. It sucks that I can't go and watch a Wes Anderson film. That kind of freaked me out here in my hometown. But I think we need either more theaters, or maybe we need a better culture. Maybe we need a better society with people who want to go and appreciate art and not just go to objectively. I don't know. That kind of got away from me.
I'm glad you said that, though, because I think that's the issue. It's not about reviewing the art or even viewing the art, good or bad. It's about money. And unfortunately, drama and negativity gets the clicks. It gets people in. It gets the discussions rolling. And that leads to money. And unfortunately, it also leads to like the end of something that could be good. Because I know for the John Carter movies on Mars.
Yeah.
Pretty good movie.
There was just one?
Yeah, there's just one. It's a pretty good movie. Even going back, everyone that's watched it now is just like, well, we didn't watch it at the time because of bad reviews. But now it's become its own cult hit. But we never got the sequels because no one went to see it when it was relevant. And that's a shame. And I feel that's how a lot of things are. We can't get better things because people are being so negative now, just for their own gains or popularity, money, what have you. And I feel like those people are actually creating what they're arguing against. They're like, oh, we don't have any good movies anymore. All we're getting is this Netflix stuff. Well, you know why? Because people will not go to theaters to pay money for these movies anymore because of the reviews. And so all thing we're getting is low budget Netflix movies. And it's just an endless cycle. Or maybe I'm just completely off base and have no idea what I'm talking about.
No, I think that's it's pretty close. People are going to go where, it is like Scorsese, especially, are these comic book movies cinema? Like some of what is cinema? A movie or an art film? Because his movies have, a lot of his movies have been just shoot 'em ups. Do they have an interesting story with heart and drama? Yeah, they do. Yes, a lot of them, yes. And I loved Hugo, and he's made a lot of action movies with, mafia guys. I'm not trying to diminutize Scorsese crazy. But when he just sounds a little disgruntled that it's been 4 or 5 generations of people who grow up and want to see the things we cherished as children brought to the screen in a way that we could appreciate as adults for nostalgic purposes. So, Christopher Reeves was brought to the big screen and had a couple of good films out of 4. There was Michael Keaton's Batman 89 and Batman Returns. And guess what? A lot of new movie reviews have popped up on YouTube for those in the past year or two. And they range the gamut from people hating them and saying that Batman 89 has 0 plot. It's just about 2 guys wanting to have sex with the same woman, to it's a beautiful madness that, I don't know what I'm watching, but I love it. That's what I grew up with. And then there's also been some pretty bad comic book films. Now we're in kind of this weird heyday where there's a lot being made, and yeah, we're experiencing a lot of fatigue from it. You know what? That's sarcasm. Because, yeah, The Flash did really badly. It couldn't have had anything to do with off-screen trauma. And also the movie, not being a perfect film. And all the bad press it's been getting for literally before they even began shooting the film. And what ended up back on number 1? A comic book film. I've said this before. The media can't decide which hand they want to distract you from. So they say nobody's going to see comic book films. Everyone's experiencing comic book film fatigue. Also, in other news, don't look at what movie is on number 1. So it's maddening. Are the Twilight films comic book films? No, they're teen bubblegum dramas. It's made for whomever wants to go see that kind of film. If you like vampires, maybe you're gonna like that. If you like teen dramas, maybe you're gonna like that. I don't know. It's not for me, but I know those films made a lot of money, but I'm not gonna come in here just to trash them. And also, it's the cinema sins culture. I'm not saying they started it, but it's just taking even a good film and finding every single thing to pick apart and trying to be funny about it. But I'm not saying they created it. I don't want to give them too much credit. I think it's our culture in general. But a lot of people are doing that now, and I refuse to be part of that.
Yes. And one big thing that irks me out of that is people being like, oh yeah, look at all these plot holes in their reviews and stuff. I'm like, you don't know what a plot hole is.
Yeah.
A character not making an optimal decision or doing something that you would do, or the movie not going the way you wanted, is not a plot hole.
Yeah. When's the last time, think about this. If you're listening to me, if you're within the sound of my voice, you think about it, and you don't have to shout it out. You don't have to put it in the comments. Just think about the last time you did something stupid that 2 seconds later you were like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It happens. That's reality. If you disagree with how somebody does something in a movie, it's the most realistic thing that you've ever seen.
Yeah, because so many times it'd be like, well, what if the characters did this? Wouldn't the movie just end? I'm like, yeah, but how many times have you seen that movie before you thought of that idea? It's the same within any moment. That and who wants to watch a 2-second movie?
Yeah, it's a series of unfortunate events and bad ideas sometimes. That's every horror movie ever made. That's people running upstairs when they should be running out the door. People who say freeze when they should be shooting. Villains that tell their entire plan to Mr. Bond when they could be just cutting him up in pieces. These are tropes.
And I feel like that's taken away from what a real review should be, because they're too focused on what can I find to tear this movie down instead of actually watching the movie.
Yeah, there's also the inverse of cinema sins. Its name slips my mind, but it's everything good about this movie.
Oh, Cinema Wins?
Is that what it is?
I think so.
And they do a ding, and it's a really nice guy, and sometimes it's just the power of friendship. Like, this guy's just being nice to this guy. Ding. I fell into that trap of cinema sins. I used to watch it, and sometimes, especially like some of the films that I disliked or didn't like or whatever, and I thought, hey, yeah, get him. And then I was like, what is this? This is just over time I felt disgusted with the whole thing. And to your point about plot holes, just because something happens off screen doesn't mean it was like, how did they even get here? Well, use your imagination. They can't. If we filmed it in real time, every movie would be 46 years long or 24 hours long. That's if it takes one day. I can't comprehend the level of some people's stupidity. And there, I just toxic reviewed American culture. I'm sorry, but this has to end. The whole thing. We have to start being nicer to each other. We have to start being objective about things. We have to start taking other people's feelings into account in general, in our daily lives, and saying, like, maybe this person's having a bad day. Pat them on the back and say, you should go watch a film, and it should be Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
And I will say, because we've started doing reviews also, so that's going to be my promise for all of our reviews. We've already done this, but it's going to be this way going forward. I'm not going to give a negative without a positive, and I'm not going to trash the movies. If it's not for me, I'm going to tell you it's not for me, but I'm not going to tell you how you should think about it. Just what I liked, what I didn't like, and then you can make your decision on whether to see it.
Unless it was Mac and Me, which I've heard you absolutely loved.
You know what? I'll say it. Mac and Me, it is a blatant E.T. ripoff. It is not a good movie.
Oh, no.
That being said, get a bunch of friends together, have a couple drinks, put on Mac and Me. That is a fun night.
Maybe drink a few drinks before the movie begins.
Yeah, pre-game. Mid-game, then see how it goes.
My wandering mind went to the other movie that a lot of people trashed based on CGI and various other filming issues, I think, or writing decisions, which was the most recent Thor film. So they tried to make the third Thor film really worked. It was a huge hit. And people seem to really like that. It went in a very different direction from the second one. They basically made an action comedy, and it was funny. And the actors looked like they were having a good time. And the fourth one was about a woman dying of cancer. And that wasn't fun. And there was another guy whose daughter dies at the very beginning of it. And he's kind of disillusioned with reality itself. I don't care about the floating head CGI. They tried to make another action comedy. It wasn't funny. The jokes didn't really work. Some of the action is okay. That's why I didn't enjoy that film as much. I didn't hate it. I mean, it's still like when you get bad pizza, you're still getting to eat pizza. It was still, it's like a fun little dumb romp. They used Guns N' Roses a few times. And some people hated it for that. Some people, for everything that somebody likes something for, somebody else is going to hate it for. And with The Flash, jump forward to that, the CGI is bad. And some people have said, like I said, I couldn't imagine that the director was telling the truth about that. And then now it's leaked. One of the people who worked on the CGI was like, if it looks like it was done in a week, it's because it was. So pick who you want to believe. It does look bad. Does that really ruin the film? I mean, you mentioned was it Brendan Fraser in the
like the second Mummy movie. Horrible CGI.
Yeah,
still love the movie.
CGI was like it's still like you go back. The further you go back, it's still in good films. I'm not saying The Flash is a good film. I'm saying try to be more objective about it. And try to just, I'm not saying we all have to just be super nice to each other, like all the time, constantly. But wouldn't that be a nicer world? If that jerk on the corner that you see every day who's a jerk wasn't a jerk, and to you, and then maybe you would go home and be a little nicer to your wife, and your wife would in turn be nicer to you, and then you would be happy, and you would be nice to me at work, to all my coworkers.
Yeah, I think that's kind of at the core of what we're getting at is just because you don't agree with something doesn't mean that everyone else shouldn't, or that you can't like somebody because they like something different than you.
And sometimes there are political agendas at play. I'm not going to pretend like that's never a thing. That does happen. I'm not going to say it doesn't. But is casting a woman in a lead role political? Is that really where we're at now? And people have even likened this. People are saying this kid who's in the new one is more annoying than Short Round. He barely had any lines and barely did anything.
As much as we talked in our Indiana Jones episodes about Ke Huy Quan and how much we like his work and all that stuff, you have to admit, even though Short Round was more useful than Willie, he was a little bit annoying at times.
Yes. But then the kid in the new one is a bit older. He's quiet. He doesn't do that much. I don't see how anybody is saying this kid is like more annoying and or useless than Short Round. I feel like we're watching two different films. I feel like people knew Kathleen Kennedy had her fingers on this. They heard that she's putting a female lead in it to replace Indiana Jones. They go in biased. They come out biased. They have the review written before they've seen the movie. They go see the movie as a formality and come out and say this stuff that, like, this is a political agenda to have Brie Larson take over the world, I guess. I don't know. This isn't to say I agree with everything everyone ever says ever and forever, ever, ever. I like Brie Larson. Sometimes. I like Harrison Ford. Sometimes. I don't like him in everything. And I would not want to have a conversation with him. I would go like this. Hey, I like your work. You're a good actor. And I'm going to walk away now before you say anything mean to me, because I know it's coming. I think Brie Larson one time said, apologize. I can't apologize for something I didn't do to you. I refuse to do that. Now, is casting her in a movie a political decision? No, you're casting a good actress in what you would hope to be a good film. Bottom line. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she was an antagonist. If you look at her through that lens, the movie makes more sense. Rey in Star Wars, not an antagonist. She's more likable. They meant for her to be Luke's replacement. She was always going to be Luke's replacement, the same way Luke was Anakin's replacement. And while some of us might not like the way it was written, or the fact that they would replace Luke at all because Mark Hamill is still young and dashing and could still play the role of Luke Skywalker in another go-round, it might have been politically motivated. It might not have been. Maybe they just wanted to add more diversity to these roles. Hopefully, in the future, they can do both. They can add more diversity to these roles and also have better writing and actors that you'll appreciate.
Well, to keep from going in circles again, I just want to say maybe I'm biased on this because I just love movies. Good, bad, I'll watch it, have fun with it. But this episode, more than any of our episodes before, I want to know what you guys think. Leave in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Am I completely off base? Am I missing something? Let me know, because this is a trend that I have noticed with review culture, and it's stopped me from watching a lot of movies I've enjoyed. So yeah, just let me know what you think.
It's also, we have to stop clicking on those bad reviews that are specifically, you know what the person's going to say before they say it. You find your person that you trust, that you like. And if it's a negative guy and you like him, if he's funny, stick with them, whatever. Hopefully it's us. Hopefully we're your new source for movie reviews. But just stop clicking on all the negativity, because it's even forced a lot of positive people to report on negativity. Maybe they still do it in a positive way, but they have to put those negative comments or negative takes in the title for their video or review to garner the viewership. You know, Flash is still getting a lot of press because it keeps dipping, so people have to keep reporting on, like, it suffered a 70% drop and then a 90% drop in views. I think people have heard that it's coming to streaming in just a few weeks. So they're not going to go see it in theaters and spend money. They're just going to wait and see it at home. And we need to stop this culture it's not at its infancy. It's full blown, but we're all responsible for it. I've clicked on a lot of these. A lot of them, I just stopped and started taking screen grabs of them because I knew what they were going to say. But not everything's politically motivated, and we can afford to be a little nicer and stop clicking on these. Send them a message by watching something that's either unbiased or more positive in general.
Or just in general, more constructive. Even if you absolutely do not like something, be constructive with it. Don't just say it's trash. Have well thought out explanations at least. And what do you think? You want to end the episode there?
Yeah, I think we're good.
And with that, if you've stayed with us to the end, thank you. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe.
Chase Burdett, music, you know.
We'll have links for him in the comments, as well as our social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook. And until next time, see you.